Welcome back to TV Dinner. My name is Sam Donchis, and I'm here to talk about the year's biggest television finale. And no, I'm not talking about Mad Men. I am shamefully not caught up. I'm here to talk about Season 1 finale of CW's The Flash. After the series premiered last fall, I was all in for The Flash. I even dedicated a whole episode to TV Dinner just talking about how much I love the premiere and how it was one of the best premieres I have seen in a while, kicking off the show in a great way. But after that, I didn't talk about it much else. Before getting into actually talking about the finale, I have to say, episode 15 of The Flash, Out of Time, was one of my favorite episodes of television ever. Really, sincerely. That was such a powerhouse episode, and I was just left reeling for a good couple of days. I remember I also had to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. after, and I was just like, ugh, no. So with a fantastic premiere, a steady stream of consistently good episodes, and what some may argue is a perfect episode of television, the finale of The Flash was something that I was very excited for, something that I had invested a lot of hope and anticipation in, something that I thought was really going to be truly good. Did it live up to expectations? Of course it did. A show with that much consistent quality is not going to let up for the penultimate episode. The finale kicks off with a much more dramatic shift in tone. Usually each episode starts off Barry monologuing about how he's the fastest man alive.
My name is Barry Allen, and I'm the fastest man alive.
But here he has a much more deeper tone.
My name is Barry Allen, and I am the fastest man alive.
He's carrying some weight with him, and it's showing imagery of him basically confronting Harrison Wells / Eobard Thawne for the very first time after his imprisonment to finally get some answers out of him. It's an excellent first scene that shows off the strengths of both Tom Cavanaugh and Grant Gustin, and it's the first in a line of very well done scenes featuring different characters talking to one another. Great character moments happen in these scenes, and they happen a lot throughout this episode. But what's important to note about this finale is that it's not just a bunch of characters talking to one another, building up tension towards the final showdown. It's an episode of The Flash. It's just like any other episode that you've seen where there is a problem and the characters have to come together to solve that problem. The Flash as a television series is nowhere near having an identity crisis, and that's one of the strongest aspects about the show, is that it knows what it wants to be. There are so many great scenes in this finale that it's hard for me to figure out where I should begin, but I'm just gonna go with the Joe and Barry scenes, where they are really reaffirming their surrogate father-son relationship. Joe has this moment of weakness where he just says Barry should go back into the past to save his mother, even though it will ultimately affect their relationship. They may never even meet one another. At first, I wasn't sure what to think of this scene. It seemed like a bit of a rough patch in the script, but on a second watch, I realized this was a necessary conflict for these two characters to have. And the way it was resolved was incredibly heartfelt and a testament to who these characters are as family members. I would have liked a scene between Caitlin, Cisco, and Barry that showed the ultimate team that they have become over the last season. We do get to see them working together, but for the most part, Barry is off doing his own thing. Although, we do get an excellent scene between Harrison Wells / Eobard Thawne and Cisco. This is the final meeting of the minds for these two characters, two men who have really gone the distance over the last season. In flashbacks, we see them as the mentor and the student, and then after the particle accelerator explosion, they are two men working together to achieve a common goal, especially after Barry is reborn as the Flash. Throughout the season, even though it pains Cisco, he is realizing that Harrison Wells is not the man that he used to think he was. The tables turn, Harrison Wells outs himself as Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. Vibrate hand kills Cisco just after telling him that he is like a son to him.
But to me, you've been dead for centuries.
But Barry is able to fix that timeline, although Cisco, as it is revealed in this season finale, is a metahuman who can retain memories from other timelines.
A great and honorable destiny awaits you now. I only hope that as you're living your great adventure, that you remember who gave you that life, and that it was given out of love.
And speaking of Barry's partners actually being metahumans, we get to see a little preview of what Caitlin becomes while Barry is running through the Speed Force. Is that actually her character's fate, or are we just witnessing a much darker timeline? We also see Barry in Iron Heights. He's in jail. He's on a phone call with, I'm assuming, his dad, in a situation where I'm guessing he was accused for murdering his mother all those years ago. For now, I'm not going to make any assumptions because that just ruins it for everyone later down the line. But I will say that I have read the first episode synopsis of season 2, and it has revealed some stuff to me, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the episode. I'll tell you when to stop the episode if you don't want to hear anything about it, but I will say that I'm not going to get too spoilery. I just want to talk about how the episode's going to kick off the rest of the season. While this finale featured another heart-wrenching scene between Barry's father and the young Mr. Allen, the real kicker for this episode was the scene between Barry and his mom. That tore me to pieces. That destroyed me. This episode in general really peeled back the layers to show who Barry Allen really is, both with his rage towards the Reverse Flash and his unbridled heartbreak as he watched his mother die. But what stands out in this episode, as it has in the rest of this season, is what Barry does with all of that emotion. When he's charged up, when he gets going, you bear witness to some of the best action sequences that are playing on television right now. That slow motion sequence when Barry speed punches Eobard Thawne right out of the wormhole was a standing ovation moment for this episode, and for the entire season as far as I'm concerned. And everything that followed in that scene had me on a roller coaster of emotion. I went from cheering to yelling at the TV screen whenever Eddie killed himself. That really shook me because Rick Cosnett, more in this episode than he has for the rest of the season, impressed me in this episode.
He was wrong. It turns out I'm a hero after all.
You are, Eddie, you are my hero.
That's all I ever wanted to be. You're a hero.
His character has remained somewhat of a mystery throughout this whole season, but in this episode we finally get to see a little bit of what he was all about. And I am hoping that in some way, shape, or form, he returns to the series. I mean, just because your body gets sucked into a black hole doesn't mean you're gone forever, right? I mean, look at Matthew McConaughey. Although Matthew McConaughey didn't shoot himself in the chest in Interstellar, so it's looking pretty grim for Eddie Thawne. And just to give this episode one final crazy action set piece, there's a black hole that's about to suck up all of Central City and maybe even the entire world. So what does Barry decide to do? He runs really fast in the air.
We have to disrupt the motion. Basically, it's just like the tornado, only upside down.
It was like I was literally watching the production throw their last chunk of the budget at this scene, saying we have to make this big, it's gonna be huge, and man, it really is. I was just sitting there being like, holy crap! It's like you're going up the roller coaster, and when you're finally about to make the drop, boom, cliffhanger. And that was the one disappointing moment of the episode for me, because I was just so physically and mentally exhausted at that point. I just needed resolution. And that brings me to episode 1 of season 2. Now would be a good place to stop the episode if you don't want to hear a little bit about what happens in that episode and how season 2 gets kicked off. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the writers start over with a clean slate. Barry goes to an alternate universe. You can still bring back a majority of the main cast. They can all be there, just doing different things. That would have been a tremendous wild card. But the writers decided to stay sensible, and for that I respect them. Barry is able to subdue the black hole, but not without a major casualty. One of the more important characters in this series dies in the first episode. I'm not going to say who, but you'll just have to watch and find out. That sets off a series of events that ultimately scatters our main characters. Central City throws a parade for the Flash, celebrating him as the hero, but Barry is working alone. Cisco and Joe are working on a metahuman task force together, and Caitlin is working at Mercury Labs. A series of events including Atom Smasher brings the group back together again, but there is a mystery man who has come into Central City, and he has some not so good news to bring. Who is this man? I know, but I'm not going to tell you because I genuinely want you to watch The Flash when it comes back in the fall. I've had an awesome time watching the first season of The Flash. I can't wait for the Blu-ray to come out. It's going to be a day one purchase for me, and obviously, I can't wait for season 2. It's going to be huge. But what did you guys think of this finale? Did you like it as much as I did? Did it fall short for you? Were you also disappointed that it ended on a cliffhanger? And now that the film feast is mostly caught up, I hope to be producing more and more content for you guys. So thank you so much for watching this episode of TV Dinner, and I'll catch y'all next time. But let's be real, the best part of this episode was Joe completing his Salty Sea Dog cosplay.